Okay, so in this video we're going to have a look at completing the square question. So example 1 is a pretty straightforward one, and then in example 2 we have a bit more work to do, and it's more similar to what we might find in an exam question. So to start off, you'll see I have the steps in the middle. So I'm going to find my coefficient of x, which is plus 2, and I'm going to halve that. I end up at 1. Now step 3, I square it out, I still get 1. And I take my positive and my negative. Now we're going to fit that back into our function. We get x squared plus 2x minus 6, the positive, and then the negative. And our next step, always the same, whatever our positive value was that we subbed in, we swap it out for the coefficient in the quadratic. So now I rewrite x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 6 minus 1. So I see here I'm dealing with a quadratic, so I'll use guide method. 1 by 1 gives me 1. Factors of 1 is just 1 by 1. I can use those to end up with plus 2. Be x squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1. Minus 6 minus 1 gives me minus 7. So just there, still our quadratic. Now we factorize by grouping. I get x times x plus 1 times x plus 1 minus 7. Tidy up. X plus 1 bracket x plus 1 minus 7. There's my quadratic, still my quadratic, and at the end here's our completed square form, minus 7, and that's us done. Okay, so example 2, more difficult question. My first issue when I read it, its layout isn't useful, so I'm going to rearrange. I get minus 3x squared minus 6x plus 9. The minus in front of the x squared tells me that I'm going to end up with an N shape for my graph. Okay, another issue for us is we can't use completed square form unless I just have x squared. So I need to factorize out by minus 3. So I'll get minus 3 times x squared plus 6x minus 3. And now what I'm going to do is apply that'll read 2x. I'm going to apply our completed square approach. So I'll use square brackets to keep the minus 3 isolated. My coefficient of x then, x squared plus 2x minus 3. So my coefficient over to the side here is 2. Half of 2 is 1. We square 1. We get 1, and we'll have plus 1 and minus 1. So I'm going to write minus 3 times x squared plus 2x minus 3 plus 1 and minus 1. Same rule, the plus I move in, whatever's there I move out. Minus 3 times x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 3 minus 1. Now I have my quadratic, I'm going to deal with that. So for guide method, we get 1 by 1 equals 1. My factors of 1 is just 1 by 1, and I can combine them. If I add them, I'll end up with plus 2. So I get x squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1 minus 3 minus 1 gives me minus 4. I'm going to continue tidying up. I get minus 3 bracket factorized by grouping now for our quadratic here, and I get x times x plus 1 times okay, so our next step now, we come back to our square brackets. We're going to multiply out, so we'll get minus 3 times x plus 1 squared. Minus by minus gives me a plus 12, and that's it there in completed square form. So I have it in the form of a times x minus h squared plus k. So part 1 we've answered. Part 2, now they're looking for the maximum value of the function. So we know from the very start of part 1 when we rearranged it that we're going to end up at an N shape. And then in this case, because it's an N shape, the maximum is actually going to be our vertex. So it'll be this point on the graph. So our vertex, we know, is HK. So in this case, and this is just where we have to be careful with signs. We have a minus here in our formula, and we get a plus in our answer. So I need to make that plus a minus. There's our H, and there's our K. And our K value we take as is. So we get minus 1 and 12 for the vertex. And that's also the maximum. So we can just rewrite it using their terminology. So the maximum is equal to minus 1, 12. And that's part 2 done. And now we have a look at part 3. So they tell us the function k of x has the same maximum values of h of x, which tells us then that our h and our k values should be identical. So it's just going to be a little bit of manipulation of formula. So the answer we had gotten was minus 3 times x plus 1 squared plus 12, and the one they have given us is m minus 2x minus x squared. So the first thing I'm going to do as above is rewrite that, and I'll get minus x squared minus 2x plus m. I'm going to factorize out. I'll factorize out by minus 1, and I'll get x squared plus 2x minus m. Okay, so now I've satisfied this part. The fact that they are different numbers won't change anything. That only affects the stretching or compression factor for our quadratic, so that's okay. And then the main thing after that is I need to apply completed square form. So we're going to work this as normal here. My coefficient for the x is 2. So I take 2, half of 2 gives me 1. I'm going to square out 1, I'll get 1. I take my positive and my negative. So I'll have minus 1 x squared plus 2x minus m plus 1 minus 1. So, sorry, our movement, my positive I'll move in, whatever was here I'll move out. And I get minus 1 times x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus m minus 1. So this here, my quadratic, I've actually reached already. So it's identical to the one that we had above. So I'm just going to skip ahead then, because I can use my guide method, but I know that the answer I'll get will be x plus 1 squared. That's fine, we're okay there. So far it's matching up. And then I have a minus m minus 1. I'm going to deal with my square brackets first before I do anything. So I have minus 1 stays as is here. And then a minus by a minus gives me plus m, and a minus 1 by minus 1 gives me plus 1. So I've gotten as far as I can get here, and just to bring down our other one. Okay, so we're just going to match up like we like. Our minus 3 is fine. X plus 1 squared. I've matched that up here. And then my leftovers. So now all I'm going to do is set them equal. So 12 is equal to m plus 1. 12 minus 1 equals m. So we get m is equal to 11. That's our solution for part 3, and overall that's the 2 questions finished.